I am Dave Henning with the Fresh Start Podcast, fresh ideas for business and personal growth. And today we are going to talk about personal growth and personal development. I love it. My guest today is Rick Heyland. Good to have you here, man. Appreciate
Hey,
it. Thanks for
Dave,
being here.
great to be with you. Thanks for your good work on Fresh Start.
I feel like we're kindred spirits in that I'm passionate about helping small business owners. My entire career and online and in sales and stuff has been just really appreciating the fact that small businesses are the heartbeat of America.
Yep.
And so you've done that for many years, but you're into living life on purpose. Talk to me about that.
Okay. Well, yeah, just after I retired from a 32-year consulting career, I said, what's next? So I went back to my own purpose statement that I wrote at 26. And that's an interesting story. And I can share that with you. That might be interesting to the listeners. But after I did that, I said, well, what do I want to do? What's my next phase of purpose, if you will? And I really wanted to go heavy in the contribution, to give back and to teach some of the personal development tools, techniques, skills that I'd learned and taught to small business and people or individuals. So that's what I spend my time in now on CI for Life, or continuous improvement for life, is just coaching and working and building tools and podcasts and books on items, things, skills that will help with personal development, as you said. And then the book came out of, it's called Live Your Purpose, a step-by-step guide for living your best life. The big question, Dave, that it's trying to answer is, how do we live our best life? And every best life is really a definition for everybody, and it's different for everybody, right? We can't prescribe what best life looks for, even for our kids and grandkids. But trying to help people with the skills and tools and ideas to live the best life. And if you could define it a little closer, what I'm really trying to dial in, and with my research and writings and the book, is the balance between happiness and success, on however you define those two axioms. And so that's what I love thinking about, blogging about, writing about, is how do we become happier and successful and get the right balance? Because we all know lots of rich people that are very unhappy, right? So it's not just money that brings it. So how can we find the balance between the two? And that's what I'm trying to answer in the book.
And what is the answer?
So thanks for asking. So I put it into two big skills. So first of all, I believe everything can be learned. I'm trying to learn golf now in my retirement, and I will never be Tiger Woods, but I am getting better through the right coaching, right? The right skills. And it's not just practice either, because I could practice bad habits all day long and not get better. But as you get better skills and better coaching in the area of finance, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, whatever goal you're trying to improve on, we can all get better. So the two skills are really that dreaming, goal setting, purpose, kind of long-term envisioning, if you will. And that's the first half of the book, where we talk about purpose and goals, etc. And then the second half of the book is, how do you enjoy each moment in the middle of that striving? How do you enjoy each moment? What are the skills to enjoy each day? And so, for example, I've got a chapter on gratitude. I've got a chapter on meditation and mindfulness. I got a chapter on acceptance. And so I think what's unique about this book, there's so many self-help books, so many great self-help books out there today and of yesteryear. But what I'm trying to balance is those two skills of the big dreaming, your, Tony Robbins approach, go live big, dream big. You are your success, envision it and it will happen. And then combining that with, well, how do I be happy in the moment? So that's where I'm going in this particular book.
So it's a balance, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there's a balance between speed up and slow down.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Slow down to be more successful, right? And
because
striving versus contentment, right? I'm going to strive to be excellent. I'm going to strive to accomplish some big things. In the meantime, I'm going to try to enjoy each day and be content and satisfied. So it's a difficult balance, because it's rare that you see both in people. Clayton Christensen writes a great book on how to measure your life. It's about mission statements and purpose statements. And he's the Harvard MBA professor that just passed away last year of cancer. But in the book, he talks about Harvard MBAs that would come back, captains of industries, powerful people, super successful, rich, and as he quoted it, second and third wife, and estranged from his kids and not happy. So, how do we find that? How do we be purposeful and intentional now to live our best life?
There's a risk to become obsessive compulsive, quite frankly.
Yes.
And literally, as you just mentioned, your life can spin out of control. And it's something I'm imagining can creep up on somebody. It's not like today you're this and tomorrow you're that and everything's destroyed, but you've still got a couple $1,000,000 to bank. Doesn't matter anymore. When you think about relationships, speak to that.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts on the relationship side. One is to be super intentional while you're young on who you want to be for your children, for your partners, for your key relationships in your life, and be intentional about that. And I encourage the skill. I think weekly planning is a superpower. I think people that think about their relationships each week and how they want to connect and or advance, and it might be month, whatever period you want to think about. But if you're intentional about, because we all get sucked in that vortex of work and trying to be successful, and it's under the guise of providing for our family, our loved ones, and it's a good goal. We need work, right? It keeps us out of trouble, so to speak. But if we can be super intentional about our relationships from the get-go, on how, even though I'm busy and traveling, how I can connect with my daughter on a Friday night date, and I'm exhausted because I've been traveling all week, but I set that plan on Sunday night. I told her we were going to go out for ice cream or whatever it might have been on a Friday night. And so as you're intentional, you can, be super successful in your relationships. And the other thing, I think about is, being more mindful, not being in such a rat race, thinking about, that skill of acceptance of where you're at, and not, somebody that, when I finally get my house paid off, then I'll be happy. And then I'll commit to my relationships or spend more time. Or when I finally graduate from university, then I can spend more time with relationships. I would coach you to think completely opposite to that, to not only enjoy the moment, but to plan now to keep those relationships, alive and well and nurtured through intentional planning.
And you've had quite some interesting moments in your life. You've run 14 marathons, and you ran in the 2003 Boston Marathon. I lived in Boston for a number of years, and as well as 7 years in a little suburb of Boston called New Hampshire, up on the big lake.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I had a friend years ago in church that had run numerous Boston. That's a big event, man. What was that like for you?
It was amazing. Every mile of the 26.2, there is cheerleaders, bystanders. Every community that you pass, there is people cheering for you. Most marathons, there's people at the beginning, but not many, because it's usually very early in the morning, but lots of people at the end and a little bit at the middle. But at Boston, not only were you in the sea of people, of tens of thousands of people, but you had cheerleaders every step of the way. And that was one way that Boston was very amazing. But I think marathon running is just an example of continuous improvement. I mean, one of the things I said in my purpose statement at 26 was I wanted my family, work, and ecclesiastical avocational life to be interdependently focused on continuous improvement. So when I got to running, it was just massive continuous improvement. I mean, you need to figure out the exact nutrition, the exact water. In training, you need to figure out how many miles each day, each week, when to run your interval running, when to run your endurance running. And so it's a fantastic example. Any endurance sport actually is a fantastic example of planning, continuous improvement. Trying to shave off 10 minutes per mile is huge and a lot of work. So yeah, I love that for not only testing yourself and showing yourself you can do hard things, but also learning continuous improvement.
And what you said about the cheerleaders along the entire way, it could actually be interpreted as a life parable about
Yes.
when you are studying on continuous improvement, there will be cheerleaders that come along in your life if you're paying attention. And I think the key is paying attention and listening.
Yeah, no, wow. Two good points in there on intention and listening. But the cheerleader point there, Dave, is huge, right? Because when I teach goal setting to people, young or old, make sure you get trusted advisors and cheerleaders in your camp, because you will have setbacks on your journey to something big that you're dreaming about. And so get cheerleaders, get people around you that'll be supportive and nurturing, not just the critics, although critical feedback is good. But you basically need cheerleaders in 4-to-1 ratio, right? You need 4 positives to the correction, especially when you're starting out new in a goal. Is make sure you have cheerleaders around you, because you will get discouraged when you're dreaming big, right? And so to have supporters in your camp is huge on your journey to accomplish big things in your life.
And one of the other really cool events that you did with your family is you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. I have some friends in Tanzania in the Young Life organization. And of course, our schools are just across the Masai Mara on the Kenya side. So I've been there and seen the animal. I was always wondering during the Great Migration whether the elephants and the animals were required to have like passports and COVID tests to cross over from Tanzania to the to the Mara side.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that beautiful country though? And congratulations on the work you're doing in building schools in Kenya and Africa. I lived in South Africa for 2 years of my life, and so I've gone back many times to different spots in Africa. But yeah, Kilimanjaro, interestingly enough, was my daughter's idea, and she was 17, 18, and typically not as I didn't feel as connected as I wanted to, but hiking was our thing. So she would talk to me when we hiked, but when I asked her questions around the dinner table, she didn't like it so much. And so we did little hikes around here in Utah. There's amazing hikes all over the place. We went to California and did a few. Yosemite was spectacular, by the way, as you probably know. And then she dreamed a big one, and let's do Kilimanjaro and do 19,340 feet or whatever it is. And so we did the 3-day up, 2-day down together, our 2 youngest children and Cheryl and I. And it was an amazing experience on so many levels. But one of the reasons was for that relationship.
What a great example of a family bonding experience. I was just laughing because I didn't do Kilimanjaro, but I did do Mount Mansfield in Vermont with my father-in-law, and he was pastoring a little church outside of Burlington, Vermont, and we decided we're going to climb up Mount Mansfield because from there, of course, you can see Canada, you can see into New York State, you can see into Vermont. And it's not that huge or anything. So we're following these trees with these little blue ribbons on it. We packed our little backpack and our little sandwiches. We get all the way to the top, and there's a parking lot there with a gift shop. We could have driven up there. But it was great because we got above the tree line, and they had some ladders that were bolted down that you had to actually crawl on your hands and knees across this big chasm looking down on a little ladder thing. So it was obviously I have a really good memory of that experience. So anyway, Mount Kilimanjaro, that's fantastic. And I love what you say about, I desire to live a continuous improvement with a spirit of love, acceptance, compassion for others and myself. That is a big key today across the United States, Canada, around the world. We need more love and acceptance. What do you say about that?
Yeah, amen. Right. And I wish I was that aware at 26 when I wrote my original purpose statement that helped me find my career around continuous improvement. But, when I was in my early 40s, my wife came to me and said, I remember where I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth in the morning. And she says to me, do you know that every time you talk to Brett, he's our oldest son, that it's about something negative or something he needs to improve or something that criticizing or grades or whatever? And I said, oh, no way, that can't be. I'm a continuous, I know the power of positive recognition. I teach it to my clients all the time. Rick, think about it. And, as I reflected on that, That was one of the tipping points, if you will. Also reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle was a big shift in my mindset as well. But those experiences helped me. And I actually added that line 20 years later to my purpose statement about, I just didn't want to be Mr. Continuous Improvement. I also wanted to live in the spirit of compassion and love and acceptance, because, no one loves being around a hard charging guy that's, taking no prisoners. And so how can I more intentionally bring out love and compassion, acceptance for others? So yeah, that was kind of the backstory on why I added that. I wish I would have been smart enough to add that in my 20s, but at least I figured it out in my 40s.
Michael Jackson had a song years ago. I call him that great, I jokingly call people the great gospel singer. Michael Jackson had that song, Man in the Mirror.
Yeah.
And the whole song is based about, hey, why don't you look in the mirror? Because you are the man in the mirror. And I know people personally that they're against criticizing other people, but I catch them criticizing other people all the time.
Yeah.
And because they're like you just said in your brushing your teeth story, we don't see ourselves like other people see us. What's it going to take to recognize those things?
Yeah, that's a great song, and that's a great theme that you've pulled out there. And I think it's really, we're so busy, we're so spun up. This is what we were talking about earlier as well, that we miss things. We're kind of unconscious. Yes, we're working hard. Yes, we're being a good lawyer, a good doctor, a good business, whatever you do for a living. But we don't slow down enough because we're kind of addicted to busy. And so to build your contemplative skills, your reflective skills through pondering, through meditation, through mindfulness, through scripture study, whatever you can do to get more insight and connect to inside and your spirit is only going to help you. And sometimes it comes in crisis, right? Sometimes it takes a big hurt for us to wake up and say, okay, I need to smarten up. I guess, and I guess that's, in companies, that's the kind of what we're trying to do with 360 feedback, right? It sometimes fails, but we're trying to wake each other up to say, do you know, Rick, when you criticize, you think you're helping him, but, so that's again, coming to the value of trust. I know my wife loves me. I know she's super supportive. So when she said that, I better listen, right? So we need either coaches telling us that or better contemplation skills, and to be more reflective and more aware about really how we're coming off in everyday life. Does that make sense? Would you add anything to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to focus now more and more on, I like to try to spend whenever possible, not because I'm kind of a workaholic. So I'm used to just getting up, jumping right into work, checking my email, going here, doing this, thinking all this stuff. So I'm trying to spend around an hour first thing in the morning in the scriptures, quite frankly. And it's just really getting reconnected with my spirit and his spirit, and listening, talking about staying in the right space mentally, contemplative, reflective. And we're talking about the fact that if we could get to the place of continuous improvement that has to do with a spirit of love, acceptance, compassion for others and ourselves. I am the classic workaholic when it comes to, typically in the past, most of my life, just going 100 miles an hour, getting up, jumping into my email, checking my messages, looking at my calendar, going in 20 different directions at the same time. And so in this season of my life, I've really had to condition, I don't want to say force myself, but condition myself to take my first hour of the morning and really spend about an hour or so reading the scriptures, because there's something about the book with a capital B, that there's something about that can draw us into this state where you are describing so apropos, and literally forcing myself even to stop and take walks and
Yes.
exercise. I have this exercise bicycle that I don't even actually have to plug in. I just get on it and ride down the street. It's my exercise bicycle. and taking walks and doing things, like that. Does that make sense?
Totally. And in fact, I have a chapter on the book on habits. And that's exactly what I'm trying to train, coach, encourage people to do. That, take that first hour, hour and a half in the day and build because willpower is fleeting. But if you can build some habits that, hey, that's just what I do. I wake up and this is what I do for 75 minutes. I've got spiritual practices. I've got physical health practices, and this is what I do. And boom, I'm on my day. And if you can habitualize those things, then it's not optional. It's not whether you feel good that day, and you really have outstanding, by small things, great things shall come to pass. And so when you build those small spiritual practices, mental practices, physical practices in your life, you get, exponential benefits and reserves for energy, passion, drive to be successful in the other things. And people think, oh no, I got to get a piece of toast and off to work. Well, you won't be as effective as if you take your first hour or 75 minutes and build these capacities inside of you.
And the irony is you actually end up getting more stuff done.
You're way more effective. You've got more energy. You've got more capacity. You've got more empathy. You've got more awareness, all those things that we really need to do quality work, not just work, hours.
We spoke briefly about Zig Ziglar before, and I got to see him, man, at least maybe 8 or 10 times in the last 40 years in different places. And I was very blessed to have a general manager at my first radio station that took the entire sales staff to see him. But he says something very interesting that I've never forgotten, that he says something to the effect, I can motivate you and inspire you, but tomorrow morning, it's going to all wear off, and you need to learn how to motivate yourself, inspire yourself. And it's all about the habits that you form. And that's what I just heard you talk about.
Yeah, no, even if you're feeling crappy the next morning, I've got these habits that are going to kick. After a good walk or run or scripture study or you feel better, right? And so if it's just habitual, it's not optional based on your mood, because our moods can vary and swing. Yeah, it's absolutely. And, I gave a speech the other day on extreme motivation to 120 salespeople. And that was one of my points is, guys, some days you'll feel lousy. It's great after 5 sales to feel amazing and you're on fire and you're going to keep working forever. But what about those days when you're a goose egg and you've put a lot of hours in? If you've got good habits to start every day, you're just going to go back to it. It's not optional. It's what I do. I've got capacity to do this because I've got these habits in my life.
It's like training for the marathon, and it's a similar kind of a thing. But I also want to make sure that we're clear about the fact that success comes and goes, and there are mountains and valleys in our life, and we're going to have challenges, many of them extremely serious. So it's also about setting your expectations.
Yeah. Well said. I had a conversation with a lady that experienced significant trauma for years and years in relationships growing up. You can imagine what that might have been. And she said to me something I believe fully, but I have not experienced that. But she said, Rick, 2 principles kept me going. One, self-care, which is some of the things we've just been talking about, exercise and meditation, etc. But, the second one was just setting little goals each day, right? It's just small goals, not, I've got a big goal to get a PhD. I've got a big goal to be financially successful and secure and whatever, but setting little goals each day. And when she was coming out of serious trauma, those were small goals. It was, get up, make the bed, say your prayer, have breakfast, get a walk, but, and, if you're not in that place of serious trauma, of course, those could be bigger things, but there's such value in every day doing a daily plan and breaking it into small goals. In fact, Dave, I did some research for the book and I talked to 1,500 people. Well, I surveyed 1,500 people from the UK, Australia, Canada, and the US. And I was looking for that balance between happiness and success, kind of what we're looking at here. And on the question of happiness, those that scored the very highest on happiness had 3 high correlating habits. One of those was exercise, and most of it was walking, by the way. It didn't have to be an endurance athlete. The second was in service to something else, meaning it could have been children, it could have been an organization that they in philanthropy, or could have been a church service, whatever it might have been. And the third was daily planning. This idea of just, and I encourage writing it down, building a list of things to do that day gives you mini purpose, gives you daily purpose, right? And something, even if the day didn't go amazing, you got, 10 things done on your list that were important to you. And so, those are the habits of the happiest people. And it starts with those very basic, simple practices in your life.
I had a really interesting interview with a business professional lady who said, make an appointment with yourself. Meaning, to your point about planning your day, is if I fill it up with the random, I got to take care of this, I got to put out this fire, I got to go over here, I got to talk to this person. But if you make an appointment with yourself, where you're giving yourself permission to have time to do some specific thing. I have a friend that does that with he has a mentor coach, and he makes an appointment with himself when he's got to meet with his mentor coach, things like that. What else? What are some other ideas that along that line?
Yeah, if someone asked me the question, Dave, and this would be super hard for me to commit to forever and forever, but what's the one practice in my life that can change the trajectory of my success and happiness? And I would say planning. And it's that exact principle of weekly and daily building 15 minutes in your day. At the end of the day, beginning of the day, it does help to make it consistent. So whatever works for you best is at the end of the day or morning, and build that planning practice in your life so that you can be more intentional, so that you can accomplish more, so that you can be more in your life. And I particularly would add not just daily planning, but the idea of weekly, because then you can look at the macro look, right? And look at all the categories in my life: spiritual, physical, relationships, financial, work. Look at all those categories and be intentional. What's the most important non-urgent activities I could accomplish this week to be better and accomplish my bigger vision for my life this week? And so, yeah, this planning idea is so critical. And yet we get so busy, you got to get to work, and most people, this is interesting. I find most executives plan their work, but don't plan the rest of their life with the same rigor. And you could say, well, they have an executive assistant, and yeah, true. But, pretend you're your own executive assistant. Set your own appointment to plan for your own personal life. And so I would say take those same habits at work that you do to plan and execute, and do that for the other categories of your life. And you're going to seriously hit a massive trajectory for your physical health, your spiritual health, and your overall life.
If you could have dinner with somebody who was really impacted and influenced your life, either somebody that you know personally or some dead or alive, historical or and you could sit down with them, have dinner, and ask them any questions you wanted to or relate to them, who would you want to have dinner with?
Oh my goodness, that is such a tough question. My brain went right away to Jesus Christ. My brain went right away to some of the founding fathers, George Washington, for example. But here's the answer I'm going to go with: Nelson Mandela, the president of South Africa. And what I love about his story, and I lived in South Africa for 2 years. And to be honest, in the 80s, I didn't even know about Nelson Mandela when I lived there. I'm a white privileged individual living in South Africa and during apartheid. And when I got home is when I started researching this individual. Nelson Mandela is in prison for 29 years, and he comes out of that forgiving his captors. And he said many great quotes and many great things about his life. Forgiveness is one of them. But he said this saying that I try to live my life by: I never lose. I either win or learn. Wow. And, he lost. You could say, well, you're in prison for 29 years. How can you say you never learn? Well, he's learning. the whole time. He's learning how to forgive. He's learning how to come by, unify a country after he comes out, so I love that idea to stay happy and successful. I never lose. I'm either winning or I'm learning. So if you have a bad day, what did you learn about it? Had a bad week. What did I learn about that? So never let a crisis. Now, hopefully none of us has to go through as big a crisis as he did. But never let a crisis go without significant learning, or even a bad day or a bad week. So that's where I would go with. I'm going to have lunch with Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, I've spent some time in Cape Town and in Johannesburg on our way back to Kenya. And ironically, my older brother was quite the character. He had an international company out of Ohio, and he's in Nairobi one time, and he's always doing this. He once got on an elevator with Prince, the singer, in New York City, and he has the gumption to ask Prince, "Do you actually need that cane, or is it just for effect?" So he's in Nairobi, and Nelson Mandela is there at the hotel he's staying at for some speech that he had to give. And of course, he had his bodyguards there. And my brother, being my brother, he just walks right up, and the guards try to, say to stop. And Nelson said, Mr. Mandela says, "No, let him come through." He sits down and he has a chat with Nelson Mandela. Can you believe that?
He got my dream.
I don't know. I have no idea what he said, but I can imagine, being my brother, he'd say just about anything to anybody. But yeah, that is so interesting. That's a great question that I like to ask people.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, 30 minutes goes so fast that I want to make sure that, how can I help you? Where can I give people a website or share with them where they can find your book? How can I help you?
Yeah, thank you. They can find my book, Live Your Purpose, on Amazon, Rick Heyland, and Heyland is spelled Heyland. Or for other tools and skills, some of the other things we've talked about today, I've got a planner, I've got other tools on my website, ci4life.org, ci4life.org. So either one of those two, Amazon for the book or the website to find out more about what I've got cooking to help people with continuous improvement.
I'm speaking with Rick Heyland from Salt Lake City, and what a great conversation we had today. Thank you for being with me. I have one more question. Can you take it?
Yeah.
One more. What was your very first job ever when you were a kid?
I threw newspapers. I delivered newspapers. My mom wanted to teach me how to work hard, and we did early morning paper route, and it did teach us how to work hard.
So which was your throwing arm, your left hand or your right hand?
No, I'm a righty, and I got really good with the underhand toss to the perfect spot on the top of the step.
Yeah, I did newspapers when I was a kid, and then when I went to college in Oklahoma City, one of the many college type jobs, I had an adult carrier route where I had to use my car. Okay. And I learned how to roll the papers while I'm driving, and throw it out my driver's passenger window over my roof, and hopefully hit the front porch or at least the driveway, kind of like Wilt Chamberlain's. No,
I was going to say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's hook shot. Yeah,
the hook shot. That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, that famous hook shot. So yeah, Wilt Chamberlain was the worst foul shooter in the NBA. I got this as the first professional game I got to see in Boston was Wilt Chamberlain versus Bill Russell, the 76ers versus.
Wow.
I think I was 16 years old.
Between you and your brother, you've lived out a few of my dreams.
Oh, man. Well, there's still time. There's still time for us to go somewhere. So anyway, thank you so much for being with me. And it's great to talk with you, Rick. Thanks for being here. Dave. Appreciate it.